200 years, the Louvre Museum in the heart of the French capital is a testament to humanity's progress. With more than 460,000 reference works, 14 kilometers of rooms and corridors, more than 9 million visitors annually, of whom 70% are foreigners, and 2,100 agents to ensure the day-to-day running of the institution, the Louvre, the size of 35 football fields, is extraordinary, as much by its figures as by its heritage. Yet, a risk crosses Paris, a danger able to jeopardize this masterpiece. The River Seine. A river capable of major floods, such as the one in January 1910. At the beginning of the 20th century, Paris was flooded for 3 weeks, disrupting transportation, the electrical network and the economic activity. Although this once-in-a-century flood reached exceptional levels, the Louvre has suffered little or no damage. But a century later, the successive transformation of the building have made the museum more vulnerable. And it is from the sewers that flooding could affect the galleries and storerooms. So today, how must we prepare the institution to face this major risk?
In fact, since 1910, there have been 2 major architectural moments. First, the Grand Louvre project of Liu Ming-pei in the 1980s, and then the construction of the new galleries of the Islamic Arts Department, whose distinctive features are, on the one hand, that they are naturally brilliant in their functions of receiving the public and presenting the collections, but which have the problem of placing a considerable part of the museum spaces below the level of the Seine. When the Seine overflows, it will overflow to a level called altimetric of more than 31 meters compared to sea level, which is a lot since today it is roughly 24 meters. When the flooding of the Seine really becomes critical, meaning when we have to implement the evacuation programs, we will have 72 hours before we are no longer sure of avoiding a flood in the Louvre.
At the end of these 72 hours, it is from the basement that the threat of flooding is to be the most feared. The groundwater underflows and the saturation of the Paris sewers would flood the museum's cellars. Pumping solutions already enable daily regulations of groundwater fluctuations, and this plan is going to be reinforced to ensure the safety of this strategic area.
Concretely, this means that we are going to create 4 large recovery pumps. 4 large pumps for collecting water and sending it back under excess pressure to the sewers of Paris.
When the water level reaches its maximum level and the Seine bursts its banks, it is the risk of overflow which threatens the palace. Many spaces would then be drowned in the water. A basic skim system such as core walls or cofferdams already allows effective protection.
So, obviously, cofferdams and core walls are there to protect against the overflow of the Seine. Therefore, of course, they are placed on the side of the Seine and protect the different possible entrances, such as ventilation grids, emergency exit doors, etc. We have a strategic plan, namely a set of measures that we've designed in advance, naturally, so that everyone knows what they will have to do when the day comes. We call this the PPRI, or Flood Prevention Plan, that we are working on. Because when the day comes, we will not have time to hesitate, we will not have time to think, it will be necessary to act in the utmost immediacy.
In parallel to this crisis management, the Louvre Museum is working on relocating works in the storeroom. All the stocks will be transferred to the future conservation center of Liévin, near the Louvre Museum. But in case of crisis, the exhibited works, subject to the risk of flooding, will be evacuated by trained and drilled volunteer agents.
We have performed a first mobilization exercise in 2014, which brought together 350 people and who were spread out in groups a little bit virtually. But it allowed us to test the warning system, the organization in situ, and the division of people in different work groups. The risk culture is to clearly explain these statistical realities. It is not because the Seine has not overflowed for over 100 years that it will never overflow in 100 years or 1,000 years in the future. It is true that this PPRI, the strategic plan, costs money. To give 2 examples, firstly, the Liévin Conservation Centre, that is to say this place where we will put the works, located in storerooms liable to flooding, costs 60 million euros. The Louvre must raise these funds with partnerships, in particular with the Nord-Pas-de-Calais region, must use money that it is able to find, in particular through major innovative projects like the Louvre Abu Dhabi. And so these 60 million euros is a lot of money, but we know how to raise it. The pumping stations, the ones we are talking about, cost roughly 13 to 14 million euros. The PPRI is there to ensure that we do everything we are able to do, that for the future generations, we especially will not lose any works. Since once the work of art, the work of past human genius is destroyed, it no longer exists. Our responsibility to future generations is to ensure that this heritage is never lost.